Hello everyone, it's Dylan from Yugioh Everything, and welcome back to another Yu-Gi-Oh! VRains episode review. This time we will be going over episode 106, the beginning of Robopi versus Blood Shepherd and Ghost Girl, our first 2-on-1 duel, our first kind of tag duel in Yu-Gi-Oh! VRains thus far. We also have the beginning of Soulburner versus I, Playmaker versus I, and Revolver versus I, although those are obviously copies of I, using a lockdown deck trying to stall our three big hitters, our three heavy hitters, I guess you can say. We also got the unofficial power rankings of VRains through I's perspective, so we're going to get into all of that, and hopefully you guys let me know what you thought of this episode down below. Generally speaking, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a good episode. It might actually be my least favorite of the season thus far, but that by no means I thought it was a bad or unenjoyable episode. I still genuinely enjoyed it quite a bit. I think Season 3 has delivered so far on pretty much every single episode. I mean, I've just been loving the direction of this season, the newfound motivations from Robopi. We got some Robopi not really backstory, but kind of where she's coming from, her whole perspective. Before we get into it, I do want to go over a mistake during a pretty big scene when I is talking to Playmaker. Sometimes you see it where Crunchyroll has mistranslations. Luckily, we have a great user in the community, DMC, who fixes the translations if there's any big important ones. Right before Playmaker says, "You tried to save Flame and Aqua, you did your best," I says a very weird and out-of-place line where he says, "Besides, everyone's here to defeat me." That is not the actual line. The actual translation, according to DMC, is, "And besides, I was the one who finished them off," as in the other Ignises. So I don't really understand how these mistranslations can happen, especially in such big scenes. It is definitely irritating, but I did want to bring that up in the beginning of this review rather than the very end, because I figured there will be more people watching the first few minutes rather than the whole review. So that was a mistake that was made. If that line seemed kind of weird, if it seemed kind of awkward like it did to me, that's the reason why. He's never talking about the people in the VRains at the moment, like Soulburner and Revolver, that are here to defeat him. He's instead talking about being unable to save his Ignis brethren. Loved the dialogue between him and Playmaker, the copy of him, but I'd imagine it still is him to a degree. I'd imagine it's not a completely different personality version of him. It just goes to show how strong these Ignis are, that they can make these almost personality identical copies of themselves. It really is insane. And the discussion here that I calling Revolver Soltek's lapdog, was hilarious, but the main theme that I got from this, honestly, was that I really is feeling guilt from not being able to save his friends. He says that to Soulburner. In fact, he doesn't even say, "You should hate me, Soulburner, because I'm trying to enslave humanity or I'm trying to destroy humanity," which, based on what Robopi said in her duel against Ghost Girl and Blood Shepherd, it seems like the motivation here is to eliminate human beings. That's what I kind of figured. There were some people who speculated, well, maybe they don't want to eliminate humanity, they just want to revive the Cyberse and bring back their friends. Based on what Robopi said in this episode, and based on what I said to a degree where he said humans and the Ignis cannot coexist, they are going to try to wipe out humanity. I truly do believe that. They are now as big of an enemy to humanity as Lightning was in Season 2, as Bowman was in Season 2. I truly do believe that, unless there's going to be a curveball. Maybe this is a curveball. I do believe they are going after human beings. And I says to Soulburner, "You shouldn't hate me for that. You should hate me because I was unable to save Flame." Again, the guilt that I feels is insane. And I'm telling you, survivor's guilt, I've said it a lot on this channel, it is 100%, it's sad, and it is a real thing. And I is the only survivor, and not only that, but he feels he had a chance to save the Ignis, or he feels that the Ignis gave their life because they needed Firewall Dark Fluid, and maybe because I and Playmaker weren't strong enough to defeat Bowman without their help. And maybe I is thinking, like, if we just defeated Bowman before I went into Bowman, or I was able to stop the Neuron Link myself, then the Ignis wouldn't have died. So maybe he does truly blame himself. It's not just survivor's guilt, but it's the guilt of not being able to save his entire civilization. And so the pain that he feels is true, it's understandable. And how is he dealing with it? Well, he's dealing with it by lashing out at humanity and trying to destroy the human race, seemingly. which is never a good way to deal, never a good way to deal with stress. A funny thing in this episode, though, is I and Robopi are about to duel. Robopi's starting to feel a little nervous, understandably so. We have a pyramid scheme of the power rankings from I's perspective. And you can see Robopi at the very bottom. Okay, I'm fine with that. You can see I above the clouds. Again, troll there. Although the imagery is pretty amazing. It's almost as if I views himself as a god, right? Putting himself above the clouds. Lightning had that god complex. Bowman had a god complex. It just seems like it's a running trend with VRains villains to have this sort of godlike, this belief that they are an otherworldly being, that they are a god here to cast their own will and their own destruction on humanity and on the earth. So I thought the imagery there of having a cloud and having him above the clouds was really, really good. Then we have Revolver at the top of the pyramid, Soulburner, Go, Blue Maiden, Ghost Girl and Blood Shepherd kind of tied, and then the four knights, including Spectre, which is kind of a surprise to have Spectre that low, and then Playmaker below the pyramid. Remember, before I was even a thing, Playmaker was still terrorizing the Knights of Hanoi. He wasn't losing any duels. A fair question is, would Playmaker have been able to defeat the Knights of Hanoi without help from the Data Storm, without help from I, without help from all those new monsters? That's a fair question, and maybe I feels that he wouldn't have been able to, and that's why he put him so low. But here are the honest power rankings from Dylan, from me. Here's how I would rank them just from a dueling perspective. Playmaker's number 1. He's beaten Revolver twice. He's at the top. Revolver, I would say, is number 2. Soulburner's number 3. Go is number 4. Blue Maiden is number 5. Those would be my top 5 if you wanted to create like a power rankings list just from a dueling standpoint of characters that are still alive. I'm not including any of the other Ignis. I'm not including Bowman. I'm not including Haru. That's just kind of a joke. I'm not including I either because we haven't seen enough of him. That's how I would rank it. I would put Go. You know, you're not going to find many Aoi's Aizen fans bigger than me, but I would put Go above her because they both lost to Playmaker. They both lost to Soulburner. Go lost to Revolver. Aoi lost to Spectre. I think losing to Revolver is more respectable than losing to Spectre. And then their big wins, Aoi's Aizen beat Haru. Go beat the Earth Ignis. The Earth Ignis is far more impressive than defeating Haru. So I would, from a dueling perspective, put Go ahead of Aoi. Then I would probably have Spectre 6th. I think having Spectre at the bottom here is a little bit insane. I'd probably have Spectre 6th, Blood Shepherd 7th, Emma 8th. That's how I'd do it. Another thing about this episode, Gnome and Vyra went out so quickly. They didn't even have dialogue. That was a little quick, I thought. They could have shown maybe the final turn at least of that duel. That was very, very speedy. But let me know if you agree with just preliminarily there listing off my power rankings. Playmaker, Revolver, Soulburner, Go, Blue Maiden, Spectre, Blood Shepherd, Ghost Girl. That's how I would rank it. Let me know if you would change any of those rankings around. Again, just from not talking about their character, just from a dueling perspective. So the real meat of this episode was obviously the Robopi duel. Robopi dueling for the first time. Robopi's archetype is an archetype called Appliancer, which is kind of cool. It's all these monsters based off of things you would find in a house, a socket. We know there's kind of like a washing machine dragon coming. We know that from the opening and from the preview. So really cool stuff there. I actually do like the aesthetic quite a bit. I think it fits Robopi's character really, really well. What I loved about this episode, though, not including Ghost Girl's Link 4, which was beautiful, by the way, two things. Loved the dynamic between Ghost Girl and Blood Shepherd. Brother and sister, but you can tell they're still not extremely comfortable with each other, right? It's not like they've been brother and sister and they've had a very good relationship for 15 years and they know each other's idiosyncrasies. It's not like that at all. Ghost Girl has to ask Blood Shepherd to use her monster, and of course Blood Shepherd is completely okay with it, but I like how we see the growing trust and the growing communication and the growing just overall relationship between, estranged to a degree, brother and sister. So I really did like the dynamic between those two. But what I really loved, and what I love that VRains has done pretty much the whole show, is giving the villain and giving the enemy team a legitimate reasoning as to why they are going after humans, and a reasoning where you can kind of sit back and if you look at it through unbiased lenses, you can say, all right, I understand why. Like, Robopi is in this room talking about how humanity leads to war, how they crave destruction, how they're all horrible. And really what I did is I groomed her. It's very easy, especially in online culture, to be brainwashed, to only see and hear things that you want to see and hear, right? You're only going to read articles that you kind of agree with and tend to agree with, and you're going to follow people and speakers that you feel are correct, especially in political culture. Happens all the time where people really get lured in to political figures, usually when they agree with the points. Maybe the points being made are a little on the fringe, but you still like to listen to them, and then you kind of get brainwashed a little bit into what they're saying because you're never looking at things from unbiased lenses anymore. That is exactly what I did to Robopi. I is showing Robopi all of these images of horrible things, of wars. There was one where there were poachers hunting an elephant, which I thought was I thought it was a little adult, honestly, but at the same time, it's unfortunately reality. It's the world. The only difference is it's a very small percentage of humans. There are some amazing human beings, there are some good human beings, and there are some really horrible people in the world. There just are. It sucks. It's just how it is. And if you only look at the horrible people in the world, you're always going to think that the entire world, the entire human race, acts like these people. Not everyone wants to be a poacher in Africa. Not everyone wants to start a war with their neighboring country. Most people don't. About 99% of people do not. But are there 1% of people who want to do something as despicable as poaching endangered species and endangered wildlife? Absolutely. There are people that do that. And if you only focus on those people, and that's all you're exposed to, which in this case, that's all Robopi was exposed to, you're going to think that every human being is like that. And you're going to be brainwashed. And that is exactly what I has done to Robopi. And so from that perspective, I understand why Robopi is going after humans. I understood why Bowman was going after humans. Like, I get it. There are some really horrible things that occur because of the human species. It's just the truth of the matter. So I understand why Robopi is doing what she's doing and why she feels that way. But on the other hand, she's only seeing it through a very small perspective. And that's why I'm still rooting for Ghost Girl. I'm rooting for Blood Shepherd, and I hope they pull it out. But I think VRains has really hit the hammer on the nail when it comes to a lot of these real-world conversations and a lot of the motivations that the artificial intelligence and the Ignis have, especially the ones that are going after human beings. Because obviously, everyone watching this show, unless there's aliens in outer space, is a human being that's watching. And so the writers have to set up the villains in a way where you can somewhat sympathize with them and you can somewhat understand why they are doing what they're doing. And that is exactly what VRains has done really, really well right from the get-go. And for the characters like Revolver and Blood Shepherd that want to eliminate the Ignis, I understand that as well because they are the number one threat to the human race. And if an alien species came to Earth tomorrow and we assumed that they were a threat to us, they would not be on Earth very long, I can tell you that. Anything that threatens your entire species' existence, you are going to want to destroy. And that is exactly the mindset that Blood Shepherd has. It's the mindset that Revolver has. And that's why it makes for such good clashing ideologies. And I think this episode really enforced it. Did a great job of giving us a Robopi's backstory and where he's coming from. Ghost Girl's Link 4 was beautiful. 2800 attack thanks to Hexia's effect. It has 4300 attack. Very excited to see how this duel is going to conclude. But guys, I am also excited to hear from everyone down below in the comments regarding this episode. What did you think of Ai's Pyramid? What do you think of this duel? Do you think Ghost Girl and Blood Shepherd are genuinely going to win? Or do you think Robopi will pull out the victory? Thank you all so much for watching. A special thank you to my Platinum tier patrons Alexa Baker, Glen McGookin, Jorge Carrillo, James Rose, Samuel Stark, Thomas Adderley, Horace Maye, Goosey Q, Vincent Van Der Veen, Rexkentrix, Smith620, and Jordan Osceola, and to my Diamond tier patrons Garrett Palmer and Jesse Wood, and to my Egyptian God tier patron Chris Swan. A huge thank you to everyone who supports me over on Patreon. I cannot tell you how much it helps me out and helps out the channel, and a huge thank you to everyone who just watches these videos, because without you guys, I would not be able to do this. I will talk to you all things Yu-Gi-Oh! VRains down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have an amazing day.
しませない取り返す君のこと Let's go and look at it 君と出会